Good morning. Can you hear me?
Hear me? Okay. Now?
Wait 1 second. Try now.
Now?
Yeah. It was yeah. I think you can put your AirPods back in.
Okay, thanks.
How are you?
Good thing. Custom live streaming.
Can you see it?
Good for me, really, Max, where we've had no.
Say that again. No, you've gone. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Say it again. Start speaking again. Oh, it's gone funny again. It's like your microphones aren't picking you up.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Are you sure it's not the live stream problem?
No, because the last time you and I spoke and you had your AirPods in, the same thing was happening. It kind of wavers. It goes a little bit up and down.
It's AirPods then, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I think you need to put it on your Christmas list.
It's annoying.
Let me just check everything, because I've got the YouTube open, I've got the Zoom open, I've got the slides open, I've got the other side of YouTube open, I've got more pages open than you could ever imagine. So that's on. Can you see the slides, Chris?
Yes.
So you can see everything, and then obviously on YouTube there's a delay.
Yes, I've heard. I can't see the slides moving, just the front slide.
Yep, they're not moving yet. We've got 3 minutes. Let me give you a brief overview. Let me show you, see if you can see these.
Yep.
And then just agenda.
Same as last year.
Similar. We've got videos, right? Obviously, same videos as last year. Tell me if you can hear the video.
Yep.
With strengths profile, we look at strengths.
Cool, man.
And then
keep talking.
Oh no, you need to see the screen, not talk.
Yeah. Oh yeah, cool.
Because then we're going to talk about these.
Yeah, I've got my strengths profile up as well.
I've got the okay, so we're about. Okay, Sarah's just texted me to say it's about a 9-second delay today.
Okay.
And then we've got what strengths employers look for.
Yeah.
And then I've put these in so that students can take them away and work on them, do the benchmark, do the buzz quiz, and all that information.
Cool. How long should this be again?
45 minutes.
Oh, quite long.
Up to 45 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but Chris, me and you, and when we start talking about strengths and this kind of stuff.
And Max, are we recording this? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't recorded it. I'm not recording it on Zoom yet, but this will automatically be recording. So once it's done, then we'll just need to edit. So we edit this front bit out.
Yep.
That's the only thing that we need to be mindful of. Keeps coming up with this message. We could use a stream bitrate of 2K. Oh god, yeah. So should be all right. And then Sarah can tell us if I don't know if she's still looking at it. If she can tell us if it looks fuzzy or not.
Yeah.
It's about a 9-second delay. That's anything we need to remember, that so that when we do the sessions, is that when I speak or ask a question, we need to give time. So you've got to give 10-second pause for the replies. Well,
fine. Okay.
Actually, let's forget that for the second, because there is no interaction.
Okay. You're not going to know if people are on, are you?
It will tell me when viewers, because I'm on a back end of YouTube, and it will tell me viewers that have come in.
All right, Matt. I'm just going to quickly move rooms, and I'll see you in a second.
Go for it.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Max just had to move rooms.
Not a problem, not a problem. Let me just turn down. I've had to turn on the heating for the first time today.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a summer house, Chris, at the back of my garden.
Of course. Of course.
Right, it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to hit record on Zoom, and then we're going to get started. So, good morning and welcome, everyone. So today, this is one of my strengths, and we're going to find out how we find out about our strengths. So, as you know, I'm Max from Pathway CTM. This morning, we're looking at strengths, and as always, I will have a volunteer with me. So, you know me as Max. You would have seen me on different sessions that we do. If you are not signed up to Pathway CTM yet, you can get yourself signed up at pathwayctm.com/register, and you can get signed up to our service and more services like this and support from myself and the rest of the team. So what you will see is me on a lot of different events and videos that we'll have seen in the past. Now, you might be watching this live this morning, and you might also be watching this on a recording. It doesn't matter either way, because you can still get support from us, okay? And like I said, we're talking about strengths, and we're going to explore strengths and how to look at them. And to do that, I actually have a guest with me as well. So I've got a volunteer who's given up his time this morning to come and help talk about how he found out about his strengths and how he uses them on a day-to-day basis. And that person is Chris. So good morning, Chris. Welcome. How are you?
Yes, very well. Thanks, Max. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to getting involved today. I'm actually still working from home at the moment, like a lot of businesses are in September, doing the whole hybrid working. So yeah, in my flat today in Wimbledon. There we go.
Fantastic. Well, I'm in my summer house at the bottom of my garden, and as I said earlier, I've had to pull out the heating for the first time today because it's a bit chilly. So, but it's all good. Right, let's get to it, because we're talking about strengths, and let's have a look what we're actually going to be talking about. So if we look at the agenda, so we're going to look at the 3 elements that measure a strength, and we're going to look at how to tackle strengths-based interviews. Now, those 2 are videos, and I want you to watch them and absorb some information, and then have a think about what the 3 elements that are used to measure strength are. And then Chris and I will discuss that after the first video, and then we'll look at the second video as well, and it gives you some tips about strengths-based interviews. Now, you may be thinking, well, we're talking about strengths today, and I'm not really sure what mine are, and you might be going a little bit ahead here. Well, look, the videos, we'll watch them because it's important to see that bit first. Let's get those 3 elements locked down, and then I want you to use them and start thinking, using those 2 elements, oh, actually, then what are my strengths? Because then we're going to look at the 8 skills and where they come from in the universal framework. That's a fancy way of saying we're going to look at these skills and what's really looked at in the workplace. And Chris, I'm going to ask you your opinion on some of these skills and strengths and what you have and how you use them as well. I'm guessing you use your strengths on a day-to-day basis, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just a few years ago when we started looking at strengths a little bit more at Pathway CTM. And yeah, I did my strengths profile, which I know young people can do through the Pathway program. And it just made it like a science that, oh, okay, I'm good at this and maybe I'm not so good at that. And I think it's quite good for young people to be able to do, because half the time, you know, we get told we're not good at this, we're not good at that. But actually, this is quite a good way of going, oh, I am good at this. And maybe I could form my career choices around that. So it's quite a good stepping stone, I would say.
Absolutely right. And that's the really important point that Chris said there. It's about you now forming your own opinion, and that will come across in the videos. But that's why we want you to understand what the 3 elements are. And then you go away and analyze and go, well, actually, what do I think my strengths are? Not what does Max think your strengths are? What does your mum think your strengths are? What do you think your strengths are? So let's get to the first video and let's get going, and then listen out for the 3 elements and start to think about what they are.
With strengths profile, we look at strengths from 3 core elements. So it's performance, what you're good at, and that may be through achievements or grades that you've had currently or in the past. We also look at the element of energy, so how you feel. So not just, you know, getting a good grade, but did you really have to, was it a slog, or did you like feel super energized and zesty when doing that? And also use, so how often do you get to use that strength? Is it more of a hobby, or is it something you use every day? So through those 3 elements of performance, energy, and use, that's how we measure a strength. And it's important to measure strengths in that way, because it's not just what we're good at, but how we feel when we're doing it. How do we show up to the world, and how do they see that strength in us? So it's important to know not just what we're good at, but how we feel when we're doing it.
So you've got a top strength of authenticity. Okay, what does that mean? How do I possibly think about a job or a role in that space, or creativity? And some are easier than others, Chris. Let's think creativity. I'm going to be a designer. You know, some make sense. Some of them are maybe more values led. These things are really important to you. So your strengths can change over time as well. So, but most of us know that, you know what, well, no matter what happens in life, these are going to stay with me. So, you know, I think when you connected with what your strength story is, you really know sort of what's, you know, how you can apply that going forward. So that was just a step of, I know what my strengths are, and then thinking about what's critical, what are my stories. So the self-awareness is really important to dig a bit deeper around that. You know, why and how, and you know, really what you feel about it. And certainly young people, my experience, I have an 18-year-old myself, you know, they're told these things. So you guys have been told what your strengths are, but it's now time for you to say, you know what, this is what I really think and feel around my assessment.
Yeah, it's something, we always call it a strengths journey. You know, at 16, it's brilliant if you're picking up your strengths, but, you know, keep going with it, keep revisiting it, and keep talking about it, keep sharing it, you know, parents, friends, future employers.
Okay, so we saw there what we were talking about at the beginning. So we said, what are the 3 elements that you use to measure strength? And Chris, these came out as performance, energy, and use. So we're going to break that down a little bit. Performance. How well do you use it? How well do you perform at it? How good are you at that strength? Your energy. And I want you to think about this. When you think about things that you're good at doing or that you enjoy doing, what does your energy feel like? Okay, Chris, let me ask you. So when you do things that you're good at, that you know that you can do well and maybe are a little bit natural to you because it is one of your strengths, what kind of energy does it give you?
Yeah, lots of energy, I suppose. So my main strength is drive, which is interesting because I was just sort of looking at that, Max, and like, you know, performance, like I am good at it because I want to get involved in different things. I like to be involved in conversations and driving things forward. And then, like you say, around energy, like I love giving my best. I love just, you know, whether it's playing on the rugby pitch where I used to play rugby or anything I do in the gym or at work, I just like to give my best, and that feeling it fulfills me, I suppose.
So let's flip it then, because that's all of that is really important to understand, that energy, the high energy it gives you and the way that you perform well at it, and the fact that you want to go and use it. So flip it. What are the things that you're not so good at? What are the things that you would say that's not my strength and I should not do that?
And it's really good you asking that because I've done the strengths profile, I know what it is. Whereas if I hadn't have done it, I don't think I'd know the answer to that. So it helps me straight away. So detail is one of my biggest weaknesses. And you can tell that I can tell it a lot more. I'm more self-aware of it in my team. And as CEO of the company, it's really good that I know what I'm bad at. So I can hire people to be good at. So whenever I'm in an interview situation, Max, with someone, I'm always like, are you more creative or are you more detailed orientated? And if it's a toss of a coin between 2 people, I'll always go with the person who's detail orientated because I know that I'm not. And I like people who are better than that at me. But in answer to your question, feel probably quite stressed, takes more time. I probably can't do it during normal working hours because I get distracted. I have to really focus and like do it in a dark room if I'm doing stuff like spreadsheets or things that require lots of detail. So I have to really give it loads of time and stress, I would say.
So now as students, when you're looking at this and you're thinking about this and you're hearing what Chris is saying, you're probably relating this to some of the things that you have to do. And it is exactly that, because like Chris said, having that strengths profile done it's essential because it really shows you a lot of information about you. But if you haven't got one of those in front of you, the easy way to think about, is this a strength of mine or not? Do I perform well at it? Do I actually enjoy doing it? And does it give me high energy? So for example, like Chris has said, his is around detail. And you've said it yourself, Chris, that kind of gives you low energy and you don't want to do it. Actually, you'll use it less often. But the important bit that you said as a CEO of a company, what you're figuring out is, what are my strengths and weaknesses? Now, let me build a team that complements each other. So not just somebody that complements your weaknesses and you complement their weaknesses, but a whole team that does that together. And that's really important. So that, Chris, is showing why it's important for students to know what their strengths are, because then you, as a young person, need to know going forward in the world, this is what I can offer. And I can show you that this is what I offer by this explanation. I'll give you an example, Chris, that for me, there's certain things that I love doing, which one of them is doing sessions like this. I love talking and giving across information and helping people. And it gives me so much energy. And it gives me that energy to keep doing it. And I'll use it as often as I can. And there's certain things like organization. Chris, you know this very well, like organization of my filing system and my emails. I am rubbish at it. and I avoid using it because I really don't like it and it gives me low energy. And like Chris's example, it takes me way longer than it should take any normal human being. And it's one of those things that I find difficult. So that's how you start to look at it and go, well, what are those things that I really don't enjoy doing? That's probably not a strength of mine. What do I really enjoy doing? So then you're all sitting there thinking, okay, that's great, but then what is and what isn't a strength? And we'll look at that in a short while, because Chris, once we get to that section, it's also really important to know what is and what isn't a strength. And I want you to start thinking about, what did you think strengths were when you were 15, 16, 17? And what do you understand now of strengths, and how is that different? But have a think of that whilst we watch this video. The students that are watching, whether live or recorded, start having a look at these scenarios and the strengths-based interview questions that come out and how we're going to answer them. Lucy, towards the end of the interview, the end of the video, will give you a little piece of advice about how you should be in a strengths-based interview, and see if you can pick that up, how you should be in a strengths-based interview. But let's watch it and see.
You know, don't beat yourself up if you're struggling to work out what your strengths are, because it can actually be a really difficult thing to work out. And I'm still working out what my strengths are today. I think one of the ones that I picked out when I was in year 13 was that I'm a quick learner. And, you know, although that's not a tangible thing, I think being able to adapt to new situations, new people is really, really valuable. And I think especially when you're going into a professional environment, being able to kind of, you know, switch on and listen and be really quick to understand, you know, what's going on, what's the business context, can be really, really useful.
So what I think is quite a big strength of mine, and what I realised was that I'm quite a big talker and will be happy to talk to anyone and meet anyone. And in my position as audit trainee, day to day we're contacting and dealing with different clients. Whether you get on with them or not, you have to be getting information and chasing information from them, or maybe even sitting at their desk going through a system that you're auditing. So even though my numerical skills might not be anywhere near as good as other accountants in our practice, there's still strength to build there. But as I can have interpersonal skills that are fairly high regarded, it balances out.
So we have a strengths application model, which means that we test candidates on their strengths. So we do lots of different online assessments. We have an assessment centre, and then finally a final interview. So what we do is we assess candidates on 9 core strengths. We kind of split into 3 categories. So it's kind of adaptability, learning agility, and then resilience as well. If you've kind of had a look on the website, I think it's definitely something that companies will say outright, whether they do kind of strengths-based or competency. Really kind of go over what your key strengths are, because that's what we're looking for. Perhaps it's, you know, you're really good with numbers, you're really good at kind of analysing things, or perhaps it's more the people side. Maybe you're really good at collaborating and kind of solving problems. So that would really work well with our kind of consulting program. So it's really identifying your key strengths and making them kind of shine through in the best way. Come kind of the best yourself. We're not looking for you to kind of conform into what we think is a good kind of candidate. Be yourself, be authentic, really kind of shine through in terms of what brings you and what makes you kind of unique. What's your USP? Be yourself, and I think that's really what makes successful candidates, when they can see kind of uniqueness shining through.
Brilliant. There you go. More advice in that video, which is going to be really useful. When we looked at it, and I said at the beginning, what is it that Lucy suggests to be in a strengths-based interview? And as you can see there, she says that the best thing to be is to be yourself. Why is that important, though? We'll talk about why it's important to be yourself. But what we're trying to show you here and take you on a journey is that to be yourself, you need to know yourself. And sometimes that can be difficult. And like we said at the beginning, Chris pointed it out, that first video pointed it out. Sometimes you've been told what your strengths are. You are told you are good at this and you should do this because that's your strength. But you need to find out for yourself, because maybe that person doesn't know you as well. Could be very good advice, but you knowing it makes you go forward better in your career and make better choices. So that's why it's important to know your strengths and really have a handle on them. It's a journey, so you'll learn more about yourself as you go along. But then once you know that about yourself, when you get into a situation like an interview, you can be yourself more because you know yourself more, and that puts you in a better position. So Chris, when you think about it and that advice, be yourself, and go and find out what your strengths are and really think about, what do I enjoy doing? What don't I enjoy doing? What gives me high energy? What doesn't? What do I perform well at? Because there's an argument that you can be good at, you can have a strength, but you've only just started using it, so you're not performing great at it, but it gives you that high energy and you really want to use it and you'll get better. So then you need to know these things and then put that into an interview situation, which we'll talk about later on in other modules. But that being yourself, it's important in an interview and in the workplace. But why, Chris? Why is that important?
Yeah, I guess it gives you confidence, doesn't it? Going into that room, knowing what you're good at. But I guess more importantly, you've mentioned strengths-based interviews. So companies do different types of interviews. The majority used to do competency-based interviews. So like, give me a time of a time when you've shown leadership, and you might talk about a time in a football or dance team or something like that. Whereas now it might be a case of, well, you might come on to it later. They ask you different questions for strength-based interviews. And so if they ask you a bit of a random question that you're not really prepared for, and you don't know your strengths, you might not give a very good answer. If you don't know what you're good at, which a lot of people don't when they're young, if they don't think about it, then it makes it hard to shine, doesn't it?
But what we find with young people is that they're good at many different things. They just don't know that that is a strength, or that is categorized as something that they're good at. And that's what we want to bring out of you, to start analyzing these things and really understand what those strengths are, because you may also still be sitting there going, this is wonderful, all this advice you're giving us, but we still don't know what strengths are. And there's an endless list of those kind of strengths. And when we start to look at it, you said it there, Chris, knowing your strengths is really important. But what about knowing your weaknesses? You mentioned it in interviews where you'll say, well, look, I'm not detail oriented, and that's what I need in my team, somebody who can complement me. That's because you know your weakness. Would you expect that from your candidates as well?
Yeah, if you're really confident, it's really impressive. Someone who knows what they're not very good at, it's just like someone in your team or someone in your football team or dance team, whatever, asking for help, being like, I don't know the dance routine, or I'm not sure about this formation. If they don't say it, then you fail. And that's the same in business.
Absolutely. And it's about working as a team to support each other. And what we want you to understand is that when we start to look at these things, there's no science to it. And actually knowing your weaknesses is a really good thing, and knowing your strengths is a really good thing. It's not hard. It will set you above the rest. And being able to talk about your weaknesses is a strength within itself, isn't it, Chris? Because knowing what your weaknesses are and being able to speak about them means that you've understood yourself a little bit more and done a little bit more work on yourself. When you were 15, 16, 17 then, Chris, did you know what your strengths and weaknesses were?
No, not at all. Not even in my 20s.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because probably it was the same for me, late 20s.
I just wouldn't have thought about it. Like now it makes sense. Now I've done the strengths profile, but I wouldn't have thought about it before, and I wouldn't have spoken about it.
Absolutely. And I think that's the point, Chris, isn't it? We wouldn't have spoken about it before. And even in my time, it was a very different area. But now we have people like us who bring these resources so that you can start to understand it. What it also does, it just gives you a little bit of more motivation to get that career or that thing that you really want. We saw James in the video talking about the fact that he really wanted to work in that area of finance, but not the greatest with numbers. Did that disadvantage him? No, because he understood that his strengths were that he's a people person and he speaks really well and makes those human connections. Well, in a team, you still have that need, even though you've got the people that know the numbers, great, but they're not very good at talking with people. So on the other side, you've got James, who's really good at talking with people and building those connections, not so good with the numbers. What a wonderful team. He goes and does one side and the other person does the other side. And that's the whole point behind it. So let's have a look at skills then, Chris, because skills, strengths, they're all interchangeable. And there's a never-ending list of what we could go through in strengths. But when we look at Skills Builder as a universal framework, and for students watching this, what I want to point out to you is that Skills Builder, I've put the URL there. You can go onto their webpage, you can take that away, and you can go and have a look at the framework. This is a framework that is used by many companies and organizations across the world. And these are the skills that are really needed. Is somebody going to have all of these skills, Chris?
Probably not. Maybe at the end of their career when they practiced everything.
And it'd probably be in different scales, wouldn't it? Like if you looked at these skills and you looked at me, you'd know which ones I'm really good at, and you know which ones I'm really not so good at. And that's all of us, isn't it? And you know that for yourself too. But let's look at it. So I've put them on with a little bit of explanation between them. And I think they are worth exploring, because listening and speaking are two ones that everybody always says, oh, I'm good at communication, I'm a great communicator. What does that actually mean? Because communicating is two things. It's speaking and it's listening. And you get those people that are good at listening, not great at speaking, and you got those people that are good at speaking, not so good at listening. Then you have those pot of gold people that are good at both, and they're quite rare and they're quite valuable. So listening, the receiving, retaining and processing of information or ideas. When you were 16, 17, Chris, did you even think about these things?
Again, no, I wouldn't have been looking at companies either. I just went to university because everyone else did. That's probably why Pathway exists.
Absolutely. I didn't know. The only reason why I knew about listening is because I did language-based degrees and qualifications. So you needed to have listening skills and speaking, but it was quite different. So then you've got speaking, which is the oral transmission of information or ideas. In your team on a day-to-day basis, Chris, in your company, how important is it to have those people that can speak and those that can listen?
Yeah, definitely. It's so important. I mean, one thing as a leader you get told is let everybody else speak first and you speak at the end, because you want the junior people to go first when there's no pressure, and then you want the senior people to speak later. But it never works out that way, Max, and that's why everyone can always improve in how they do things, because there's a textbook and then there's real life and emotions, and that's why it's challenging. But one thing I would say is it's all about getting that work experience, because I'm actually a really creative person, but I could never draw anything in art, and I was rubbish at art. So I would assume I'm not creative. Whereas actually in the workplace, I come up with lots of ideas. And so I am creative, but I wouldn't have known that without work experience. So to kind of get that job where you know that you want to be in that right place, you gotta have a few bites of the cherry. And that comes with getting as much work experience to figure out, let's say I worked at a gym and they wanted to design a new layout. And actually I had some good contributions towards that. Maybe I am quite creative, or maybe actually I'm not, because no ideas come in my head,
That's a really interesting point. I'm very similar to you. I don't think I have any creativity. People say to me that I do because of ideas I come up with. But like you, I can't draw a stick man. Pictionary, the game, I'm useless at. But that's where we need to understand, what does creativity then actually mean? And looking into it is what's going to help you. When we look at listening, we look at speaking. It's not just about how well you speak and how well you form the words. It's how you get your message across. How useful are you at communicating that message? But then there's certain ones that I always like to pick out, which will surprise students. It surprised me when I was younger. Staying positive. It says here, it's the ability to use tactics and strategies to overcome setbacks and achieve goals. That's what staying positive is. I work with a lot of students, and when I talk about this, they tell me I would never have thought that was a skill that was needed in the workplace. Chris, how great would your workplace be if everybody came to work and was negative and grumpy all the time? How much would you enjoy your day?
Yeah, I'd hate it, wouldn't I?
And also, how would it affect your business?
Really negatively. It's all about attitude in everything that you do.
And that's why it's important to think about these things. And we'll see that on the next slide as well. Your personality and that trait, staying positive, isn't just always about being bubbly and whatever. It's about seeing a difficult situation and going, you know what, we can still make the best of this. It's going to be tough, but we can get through this, and working together and being positive and still aiming and going forward. You don't just see the first challenge and go, well, that looks too hard, we'll stop here, because you'll never go anywhere. And as I suppose, Chris, as a CEO, that's one of your things. You mentioned it earlier, that drive to keep going. That's part of your positivity as well, isn't it? To keep going. You see a challenge, you go, right, we're going to overcome this and keep going, right?
Yeah, and that's why people who are good at sport, like I was, it's really easy to put that into an interview. Or you're good at something musical, or something in school, because you're going to be driven if you're good at it. Like you're going to want to do it, etc., etc. And there's a good example of a guy at the minute. So we're September 2022 at the moment, and someone's a man in up north. I can't remember where he's from, but he's doing 365 marathons in 365 days. And, that is the essence of staying positive, because he's doing marathons through injuries, but he's getting up and he's doing it and he's getting through it. I heard him yesterday speak, and he actually was talking about looking forward to a beer on the 1st of January, because that's going to be when he finishes. So just that mentality of locking yourself in to like 6 months down the line, whatever it might be, is all about that staying positive. So you can really do a lot with how you approach things mentally. It's just whether you want to or not. And I think when you're in school and you don't know what you want to do and things seem a bit boring sometimes, it's quite hard to. But as soon as you get out into the working world and you realize what you quite enjoy doing, things get much easier, and it's easy to stay positive, I'd say. Easier.
Absolutely. And when you look at these skills as well, what I want students to do is take some time after the session and take some time at the weekend to go to that website. So you take the URL, go to the Universal Framework, and you can go and explore, and it will show you the different steps and how high, because there's steps to this. It's not a yes or no. It's not, are you good at listening? Yes, no. It's not that, it's how good are you at listening and how much more can you improve? What can you do to improve? As young people at the start of a career, what we find is that you have these abilities within you, but you've never been in a situation where you've been able to use them or bring them out or put into a situation where you use them more. And the more you use them, the better you get at them. But then you have the flip side, don't you, Chris, where it's when we talk to students and help them realize that actually they've been using these skills. Your example was a very good one, sport. A lot of students play sport. A lot of young people have to be involved in teamwork activities at school in different projects. How did you react in those? Were you the positive one? Were you the creative one? Did you listen well? Did it get better the more you did it? Did you speak up? Okay. Are you good at problem solving? And it's those things and it's those examples that we need to think about. We'll talk about those in another session that I do, which is about how to write CVs and applications, and we bring that out more. So these are the 8 skills. They're really important. Listening, speaking, problem solving, creativity, staying positive, aiming high, leadership, teamwork. You may not have all of them, or you may have all of them in varying degrees. And as a journey through life, you'll get better at some, and some you'll get less better at because you don't use them as much. And that's the whole point. What can we do to use them? The next slide I want to get to is we talk about what strengths then do employers look for. So a lot of times we can be sitting there thinking, oh, what does an employer actually look for? I've been at school and college and I've done certain things and I think I'm a good team player and I think I'm a good leader. But is that the only thing that employers look for? Well, I've got here a slide of different bits of information that employers would look, strengths that they would look for. And when you look at this, Chris, take yourself back to when you were 16, 17, even 18, 19, 20. Do any of these surprise you? And I'll call them out. You know, we have things like curiosity, imagination, positivity. We talked about that a second ago. Humor, that's an interesting one. Then you've got care and initiative and responsibility and pride. Then you have things like courage, the willingness to learn, speaking up, time management and reliability. Because when I look at them, I go, time management, that's a very sort of a process thing. But then humor, how do you gauge humor? And did any of those surprise you when you start to find them out, Chris?
Yeah, I suppose when you start learning about all these things and relating it and reflecting back to yourself. I mean, we heard that EY, Ernst & Young, one of the big 4, they use 9 strengths. So what these companies do, they work with companies like Capfinity, who are all around strengths. Max, how many strengths are there? I don't actually know the number.
Oh, there's over 60.
Okay, wow. So there's like 60 strengths that people have identified. And then a company like EY will be like, well, let's pick all of our best people from different demographics, different backgrounds, but all the best people. And let's look at what they're like in terms of their strengths. And then they'll go back to that company, but like, look, we think these 9 strengths are the ones that we want to have at EY and that make people successful. And then that's what they look for in the interview. So yeah, for me, like now it makes perfect sense. But one thing that stood out to me, actually, I learned recently, time management, you might just think it's turning up on time, but it's actually scheduling your day and doing what you want to get done. If you're that person that never fits in exercise, even though you want to and you value it, you're not maybe good at time management. You know, if you're someone that never fits in their homework or is always running late, again, it's that time management piece. So it's not just running late for things, it's actually that whole piece around how you plan and organize your whole life, I suppose.
Really good points. Interesting points there as well. And that's what we want to explore more, because as young people at the beginning of a career, and you'll look at some of these and go, what does that really mean? How does that translate into the workplace? Don't overcomplicate it. It's pretty much similar. When you look at things like humor, that doesn't mean that you turn up to work with a joke book and start cracking jokes all over the place. That's not what it's about. It's about using it in the right situation at the right time. And the humor can be that positivity, bringing that lightheartedness to a situation, because not everything at work every day is serious. There are moments where you need to be serious, but there are moments where you can have a bit of lightheartedness. You are going to be working together as a group, and that's what makes it. And think about it. Let's say in sports, let's say you are in a football team or a rugby team, or maybe you do something different. Maybe you do dance, or maybe you volunteer in a team in a local community. Okay. And you think of those situations where you're working hard and you're doing something really important. And then there's that moment of break and somebody cracks a little joke. It brings the lightheartedness to the situation. And this is what changes the workplace and how people think and feel. But it's about understanding the right time. And one of my favorite ones is this one down here. Speaking up. Now, if I said to you 10 years ago, Chris, speaking up, what would you have thought speaking up meant when you were 20?
Speaking up in friendship circles and in meetings at work.
Exactly. That's what you think in terms of like speaking up about that. But now when you look at it and speaking up and you say, well, actually, something is wrong here. This isn't right. but nobody's talking about it. We need to talk about this. That is speaking up. When you see that something is wrong and you say it, actually, we're making a mistake here and nobody's talked about it, and I'm going to point it out and say it. That's speaking up. Does that take courage, Chris?
Yeah, of course it would. And not many youngsters would do that, because it's easy to sit in the room and not be the person to do that.
Absolutely. But as a CEO, how important is that to you?
Yeah, it's huge. And it is huge, but then I'll be honest, and you don't see it in the younger members of staff as much until they start building that confidence, which is again why I go back to get work experience, because it's just confidence. Then you break through that barrier of going, oh, it's not that bad, and I'll do it again. And then in your next job, you're amazing at it, you know?
And that's why when you start to look, something like speaking up goes together with courage, because the point you just made, Chris, is that in the more junior team members, the newer ones that are not as experienced, there is that hesitancy, because it's about gauging that workplace and still learning and embedding yourself. And if you have courage, maybe you will speak up and say, well, actually, I'm going to stay here. And it doesn't matter if I make a mistake or not, because I want to learn to go forward, because actually it's a good mistake to make, or it's a good lesson to learn. So that's where we start to see these kind of all link into each other, but not everybody can have all of them. I think it's fair to say, I think I've got good humor and positive. I mean, my jokes are the best, but I've got good positivity and I care. Is my time management great? No, it's not. And we know that, but I know that as well, so I can work on it. And I know I understand what things I need to keep being good at. And when you look at the different roles that you do, and parts of my day, I need to be very good at certain things, and other parts of my day, I need to be very good at the other things. I'm not good at all of them, just have to do them to the maximum of my ability. Goes back to that point, doesn't it, Chris? When you build a team, and you said it, I'm not detail oriented, so I'll look for somebody who complements me. And when you look at a team and you start to build it together, and you look at your marketing department, and then you look at your education department, those people are going to have different skills, similar skills, but they're also going to have different ones, aren't they? Because they're different teams. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely. Like if you're selling something, you need to be quite talented at speaking to people, communicating, and enjoy doing that, and get your energy and strengths out of speaking to people. It might be that sometimes doesn't complement admin and time management. So in different roles, you want different traits. So your accountant, you'd be pretty annoyed if they were just talking to everyone all the time and not doing their admin, because then your finances won't look very good. So it is quite interesting when you start thinking, what am I good at and what are my energy flows, to actually maybe what career could that suit?
And the point there is an important one. When Chris says what he just said about that, and we talked earlier, if you know yourself, you can sell yourself better. When you go into an interview, you must never go in trying to be what you think that company is looking for. And that's why Lucy said you must always be yourself. Let's bring this full circle. You must always be yourself, because if you know yourself, you know what you sell, you know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm all right at. This is what I can do really well, and I can bring to your team. That employer or that recruiter can then sit there and say, well, actually, this is what I'm looking for in my current team. You let them make the decision. You don't go in and tailor what you are according to what you think they are looking for, because that's not you. That's not what they're looking for, and they're getting something different. When you know yourself with confidence, you sell yourself. And if that recruiter turns around and says, you're great, but you're not right for what I'm looking for, you don't fit my puzzle, that is fantastic, because then you can close that door and walk away and go and find the puzzle where you fit. That's why you need to know yourself. When I was younger, I made the mistake of one of my first jobs I went to out of university. I really, really wanted the job, and it played on none of my strengths and played on all of my weaknesses. I lied in my interview to get the job. Within 2 days of starting the job, the boss pulled me to one side and he said, you're not actually very good at this, are you? You lied in your interview. And I was like, I did, because I really wanted the job. And he said, but you don't fit what I need. You've wasted my time and your time, and I'm going to have to fire you now because you're not good for this role. But he took pity on me because I was young and I'd made a mistake. And he said, however, I've seen what your strengths are, and there's another role in another company that I know of that you will fit. And he sent me there. Doesn't mean you go and lie in your interviews, but because I was so nervous and I didn't really want to say what I was good at and bad at, because it wasn't going to get me the job that I thought I wanted. I just didn't fit it. It was not right for me. If I'd have known myself and had more confidence in myself, I would have reacted differently. But that's a journey we go on, and that's why we're here. So when you look at these strengths that employers look for, start to think in yourself, what do I have? What can I bring to the table? And Chris, let's break it down. We're talking to students here who are at school. They've got a part-time job. They play in sports teams. They might help out in the local community, and they're doing stuff in classrooms. humor, positivity. We are looking for those people who like to crack a joke or two, but get on with the work and still get good results. You know, those people that care, those that maybe aren't as vocal, but they will always come to your side and say, hey, you maybe not be looking so happy today. Is everything okay? Or do you need cheering up? Those with curiosity that are always asking, but why? But why? But what else? You know, it's those people, those kind of people that bring your company to life, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, it is. And just go back a slide, Max, if you could as well. Because if I was you, I'd be looking at all of these things here. If you do strengths profile, that's easy. But if you don't, then or do this as well, and tick and cross basically, or question mark. You know, it's quite good. You go into an interview, you think, right, well, I'm quite good at these areas. I think I'm good at that. Let me elaborate, and then go to the next slide. And then also looking at things like this, such as your strengths, and again, just looking at it, like Max was just helped a little bit around curiosity, positivity, care. You'll know naturally from this, you know, maybe what sort of box you might fit into a little bit at this stage in your life. So by doing this and just thinking about it and making notes, it means that you're going to be really prepared for when the interview day does come and picking that right job. So it's interesting, you know, looking at all this stuff. It's really, really good use of your time if you're career focused and you want to do well in your life. It might still be that you're not quite ready for all this, but it's good to at least listen to it.
I like the point you just made there about whether you're career focused or not. Let's also be blunt. At a certain stage, you need to decide whether you're going to go to university to get a degree, whether you're going to go and do an apprenticeship to get a degree, whether you want to get a degree at all. And knowing these things will also help you choose the right course for you. It will help you choose the right university for you as well. Because when you go to that open day at a university or that assessment center at a company and you feel, what are they like? Well, actually, this company is a little bit too serious and a little bit too courageous for my liking, and I'm not going to fit here. That's the sensation you have because you know yourself and you've done the work on you. You can then walk into a different room and go, oh, this one feels better for me. I'm going to feel more comfortable here, whether it's the university or the company. But knowing that is really important. So what do we do with this then? So how do we help you? And I've mentioned a few times already, and I've said to you in other sessions, I will be exploring more. And you may be sitting in a classroom and thinking, okay, but that's great. How do I explore these other sessions? What I want you to do, and what we think is going to be useful, go away from today's session. After this recording, go and identify your individual strengths. It's a journey. That's what the video said. It's a journey. It doesn't just start and finish in 10 minutes. You start it and you'll keep going. I am 41 and I'm still discovering strengths and I'm still discovering weaknesses as I go through life because I'm being put in different situations and given different things to do. And it stretches you and it's a journey that you keep going on. And in that video, it also said that as time goes on, Chris, you can back this up as well. As time goes on, do your strengths change, or have your strengths changed, or have you found out more? And maybe some of the things that you were good at a few years ago, you're not so good at anymore because you don't get to use them. That fair?
Yeah, definitely. And we actually do the strengths profiles once every 2 years because they do change and you do see things move because you're always learning and going to new situations. So yeah, I guess it's kind of interesting because if you don't think you're doing very well now and you haven't got many strengths and the strengths profile tells you things you don't understand, then don't worry about it because it's not going to be fixed for the rest of your life, you know? Absolutely.
And it's about that journey you go on. So to be curious and to find out about your strengths, there's a few resources that we have. Those 8 skills I showed you, they belong in a universal framework, and Skills Builder have that. And it's a good resource to go and have a look at the benchmark. You can take that URL, put it in, and it will ask you, sign up. It's easy to do. There's nothing major you need to do, but it will ask you certain questions and it will give you a little benchmark. Oh, you're this level at listening and maybe this level at speaking. Go and do it and explore it. That's a start. That's just a drop in the ocean. Another one, which is a bit more fun, is called the iCould.com Buzz Quiz. Again, take that URL away, fill it in. And that one, you just answer the questions quickly. It's short. It takes about 1.5 minutes to do. What it does is it gives you a little a review of your strengths and skills and your weaknesses. My one always comes up as a seal. Depending on my mood, sometimes it comes up as a tawny out because I might be in a bit more of a focused mood where I'm not into being more positive. I'm more into focus than detail. So it changes slightly, again, according to day, but more or less this is it. It will tell you what you are, different animals, different things. Now, Chris, I don't know if you've ever done one of these or if you know what you come out as. If you have, great. If you haven't, don't worry.
No, I haven't actually. I can't say I'm a seal, but maybe I will be.
We'll have to get you to do one day. So, but look, what you need to look at as a young person is look at what it says the strengths are. It does not mean that this is 100% you and you have to take it as gospel. You need to read it and go, oh, actually, I identify with that. Some things you'll read and go, yeah, not so sure. And that's fine because it's not 100% accurate. But it says here, for example, seeks connection and meaning in life. Well, Chris knows that I study philosophy, so I think that fits. Yeah. What does it say? Often funny with a good sense of humor. Well, I said it earlier. I think my jokes are great, and I think I'm absolutely right. Chris will back me up. Very sensitive to criticism. Yeah, that is me. I am sensitive to criticism. But these things are what you then use to look at yourself and go, that actually, yeah, I resonate with that. But then it says, like, as a leader, I'm a quiet and caring boss, and I'm people focused, and I often bring original approaches to the role. Okay. You may look at this and go, but I've never been in a leadership situation. That's fine. But it's one for the future to go and explore. Go and do these, have a look at them, explore them, and then you see what other people are as well. We've mentioned it a few times, haven't we, Chris? You can do the Capfinity Strengths profile, and I've talked about my CV and cover letter session where we draw more of these examples out. As a student sitting in a classroom or watching this recording, you may be thinking, how do I get to that? How do I get more of that information? Well, if you scan that QR code with your mobile phone, that takes you to our events page where you can also sign up to Pathway CTN. You will see the events that we do, like my sessions on a Wednesday, 4:30 till 5:30, where you can come and ask me anything. You might be sitting on this session and go, I've got more questions and I need to know more. Come to my Wednesday session. It's open page. You set the agenda. See the other events that we do. When we talked about when you start to learn and say, well, actually, I really want to get into finance because I find that that's where my strengths are taking me towards and I want to explore more. Come to our Finance Insight events, which are in the evening, or our virtual work experiences, which are during the day. Because Chris, you said it a few times. It's really important to get that experience. But if I'm 16, 17, 18, how am I going to get that experience? Not every company allows me in for work experience. How am I going to get it?
No, well, like you say, like we put it on a plate, don't we? Doing physical trips. There's one at HSBC in London and in Birmingham coming up next month. We do lots of physical events in companies where you get to go meet people, shake their hand and build your confidence and put yourself outside your comfort zone. They can be like full days in an office doing work experience, or it could be sat at home in your holiday time doing it online. So the online ones I think are interesting because companies and people, like whether they're graduates or apprentices that we normally have on, they're always like, yeah, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. I realized I was good at this when I was this age. I did my CV when I was this age, etc. And you can just relate to them and then just start thinking, oh, those people at that company, firstly, it looks cool, I'm interested in it, but the type of person that they are, I can relate to. And then it might mean that you can go and follow into those footsteps as an apprentice or a graduate, whatever way you want to go. But it is on a plate for you. But like I've always said, it's all about attitude. And most people that see stuff like this don't do it. But those that do, they're the ones that it gets exciting because they're obviously quite driven and they want to go and have a go at stuff.
That's the important point. It's about getting in there and doing it. When we look at the events that we do, I know working with a lot of students that they find it uncomfortable sometimes to be online and to do virtual work experience online. There's two easy sides to it. It's very easy to do the tasks because there's nobody over you looking at you, and you can do it and you feel more confident in that. But then there's the points where we say, right, now unmute your microphone and tell us what you think. And that's where people tend to freeze and go into their shell. Do the opposite. It's the best forum to be able to make mistakes because nobody's going to judge you. And the whole reason why we put them on is for you to get better. It's a forum for you to get involved, to make mistakes, to learn and to progress before you get to an interview or a different situation. So you can sit there and you won't make mistakes. There are no mistakes to be made. It's about speaking up. It's about saying things and it's about getting involved and your opinion is valued. We know that some of these things are hard. The more you get involved, that networking starts there. Back in when I was younger, we didn't have online things. So networking was physically going to a situation, physically turning up, physically introducing yourself. And I can assure you, I have a great personality, but I'm very introverted in those situations. It's very, very difficult. And I would have to walk up to people, introduce myself. Who are you? What do you do? And then within a few minutes, you've got to work out if they're useful to you. Come to one of our sessions. You know that everybody there is useful to you. They want to meet you. That's why they're there. And that's why we've put these sessions on for you. Take advantage of them. And these will add to your skills. But then we talked, didn't we, Chris, about that strengths profile? Well, the strengths profile comes because we work with Capfinity to be able to help you with those strengths profile. And they're really good things. So come to the sessions that we do. Come to my Ask Me Anything. And maybe you can get your hands on one of those strengths profiles and do them for yourself and explore more, and then come back and ask more questions. Get involved in work experience that we run with opportunities that we have. So there's a lot going on. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, on LinkedIn. You may not know what LinkedIn is. I'll do a session about that as well, and there's resources on our website. But get yourself involved, get on them, follow us, and you'll get loads more information. Join Pathway CTM as well, and you will be furnished with lots of resources, lots of sessions that you can do, and you'll be able to meet more volunteers that we have. Chris, who do we work with? Different volunteers from different companies. We've got PwC, EY, NHS. Who else have we got? Give me a few names.
Yeah, Jaguar Land Rover, Thales, who makes some interesting things in terms of defence. Goodness me, Pret a Manger. There's lots of different companies that we work with. IBM in technology. Yeah, lots of different brands and companies, and they've got good opportunities as well. So check them out.
Absolutely. Some that you may never have heard of, but that's the point. Come and meet them, get yourselves involved, learn about them, and excite your career, and get moving forward and know yourself better. Well, look, Chris, I want to say thank you very much for your time this morning, for sharing your strengths and being open about your journey as well. I think we can say thank you to students, whether you're watching this on a recording or watching it live. Thank you for tuning in. If you want more information, come to my Wednesday session. Every Wednesday, 4:30 to 5:30, except during half term. Come and ask me questions. But yeah, for now, I've been Max from Pathway CTM, exploring your strengths, and this has been Chris. Thank you for your time, Chris. Really appreciate it. If you've got any final words, would you like to say them?
Yeah, just thanks for having me, and good luck. If you're watching this in September, you're ahead of the game. If you're in year 13, keep your options open. Maybe apply for uni, apply for apprenticeships as well. Year 12, it's all about work experience, get it in. Then year 11, of course, GCSEs, which is important. Then year 10, if you can get ahead of the game and get some work experience in year 10, then you're on to a winner, aren't you? Year 9, well, I won't continue. But, just try and get your foot in the door as quick as you can and as early as you can, and then you can start figuring out what you want to do.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. And we'll see you all soon on the next sessions. We've got one tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock again. It's a repetition of this session for anybody that's missed it and wants to see it live. Otherwise, next Tuesday and Wednesday, the 6th and 7th of October, we're looking at what your post-16 and post-18 options are. Tune in. The recording will be available as well. But thanks very much and have a good morning.
Thanks, Max.